Welcome back to the Profit Builder Unscripted. Today we're talking about how do you reduce the level of angst and anxiety about following through with your team and getting your team and you on the same page consistently about deliverables. All right, let's jump in. Do you ever have the experience that sometimes you feel a little out of control with what's going on in your business? And what do I mean by that? Like, do you feel like you have people on your team doing different things and you're not exactly sure where things stand with projects and you're having conversations with people like maybe one at a time, but you kind of like you're having to hold on to all of these pieces and all this information. And sometimes it feels a bit overwhelming or just time consuming to try to remember all of it. I recently had this experience with somebody on my team, and I was reminded as I then had this conversation with a client who I noticed was having the same problem with some people on his team. And it occurred to me that I had not been doing something, and neither had this client, been doing something that I know makes a huge difference in our ability to be able to stay informed in a way that we're not having to sort of chase after information, right? We're not having to keep it all in our head and be reminded or remind people about like, well, what about this? What about that? Where does this stand? Where does that stand? And, a few episodes ago, I talked about making smart agreements that are specific, measurable, there's clear accountability, realistic, and time driven. And you're certainly welcome to go back and listen to that because it's really a powerful tool in terms of how we conduct meetings. But this is actually sort of a step before that, which is, are we having regular meetings with our team? What I was reminded of last week was I know that when I have consistent meetings set up with my teams at regular intervals, whether that's once a week, once every other week, in the construction, when I'm talking with clients, it's like if it's your production team and your foreman, like, are you having meetings every single solitary week? Ideally the same time so that it's not like, one of those things that becomes a moving target. That when you consistently have meetings with clear agendas that has your team updating you on where things stand, it makes a huge difference in terms of your ability to be able to know where things are at, and that you're not having to like live in this like confused state or like overwhelmed sense of, well, is that done or is that done? Or like, do I have to check on that? Do I have to call on that? Do I have to follow up on that? Like having a consistent meeting with your key team players can make all the difference in the world in terms of you knowing that there's a form and a format and a time and a place when things are going to get followed up on. So what happened with this person on my team is I have all these different projects that I've got outstanding with them. And it's what I had done is I kind of got lazy about making sure that we were regularly meeting and that we had an agenda set for those meetings of, hey, I want an update on what's going on with all these projects that you're working on. And we use a project board, we use Trello that tracks those things. But I also found that like it without having a form and format for us to meet regularly, it was a little bit hit and miss as to, well, were the boards getting updated or were there other emails that I sent with requests or information that I needed or so on and so forth. And so one of the things that I have put back into place is we now have a regularly scheduled meeting. Now, we don't need to meet every week, this person on my team. The work scope doesn't require it. But when I sat down and we had a meeting and we went through this, I had all these things that were on the top of my head of requests that I knew I'd made or like projects that we were in the middle of or things that hadn't gotten answered or follow through that had to happen and so on and so forth. I got it all on the agenda. And when we sat down and met, first of all, it got it all out of my head when we were really clear about the agenda. And then secondly, before we ever met, I said, hey, would you go update the status on all of this? And then we set another meeting at the end of that meeting so that we know we have a follow-up time. Now, one of the other things that was really important, which again, I talked about this a couple of podcast episodes ago, is making sure that when we're done with our meeting, that there's a specific what actions we're going to be taken and by when. That's the SMART agreements, right? Specific, measurable, there's clear accountability, they're realistic, and they're time driven. Any agreements that got made at the end of that meeting, we captured, and there's always a by when date when things will be done. Super important. So we have an agenda, and we always get agreements with a specific what and by when at the end of every meeting. So re-implementing that practice, but just scheduling the meeting, I just noticed that my sense of angst went way down. When we had the meeting, I was like, it was clear we were on the same page about what was going on. We scheduled another meeting again for a couple of weeks out. So now I know when we're going to be meeting again on it. Like, so just, I wanted to share this with you because what I see is contractors I work with who do this regularly with especially like with their foremen, their superintendents, their project managers, their finance department, their marketing department, their estimators, like every key player in each department, when they are regular and consistent about having those meetings, their operations flow much more smoothly. And I noticed that their anxiety goes way down. Everybody's anxiety goes way down because now everybody's not operating on, it's just another conversation that we had and hopefully it got done and did it get followed through and so on and so forth. If you have meetings with clear accountability, with an agenda, that when you start every meeting, you start with, well, what'd you say you were going to get done at the last meeting? Did it get done? Why not? If not, why not? What's next? And then going through the agenda of other items. And then you have a to-do list at the end of every meeting. The more I see that when we as leaders manage our teams that way, the more consistent results we get from our team, but also the less anxiety that we have as leaders to try to keep all of that in our head, right? Or to chase after people for results. So, one thing that you might look at is, do you have those regular meetings with your team? And do you have an agenda? And it is, are you checking what open items are there from the last meeting, making sure that, you have action items at the end of every meeting with a specific what and a by when. Just those few simple things, I just they make such a difference in our ability as leaders to have more peace of mind, more clarity. And you know what? Here's the interesting thing. It helps our teams also be clear about what they're accountable for. And when you have a meeting with somebody, right? Like you're going to come prepared to the meeting with what it is that you're going to be asked about, right? So I just find that when I'm consistent about that, and when I see clients who are contractors who are consistent about that, operations of your business run much more smoothly, and our anxiety level and our team's anxiety level, quite frankly, goes way down because now there's an existence system for managing our agreements with each other and staying on the same page with each other. All right, I hope this has been helpful. Just my learning for the week, or my relearning for the week. Wanted to share this with you, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Profit Builder Unscripted. Make sure to follow or subscribe below so that you don't miss another episode. All right, we'll see you next time.